Kennedy's independent run will devastate Biden's shot at re-election. Kennedy's polling at 15% with Democrats. If Biden's the nominee, 15% of American Democrats will have Kennedy as an option. Mellon scooping a critical piece of the base away from Joe.
Well, that's what Jesse Waters thinks. RFK Jr. running, he thinks, will hurt Joe Biden. Some polling now out says the opposite. But Kennedy is not just your run-of-the-mill Democrat. His issues are very Republican on some things like vaccine, like Ukraine funding. And so a Kennedy campaign insider put it to Mediaite. MAGA folks are upset over this news. Data guru Nate Silver noted on Twitter, the available numbers indicate a Kennedy third-party run is trouble for Trump. Not being remotely sarcastic when I say this is good news for Biden, Silver said, if Kennedy runs. I will say, more than just anecdotally, all of my interviews with people at Trump rallies asking them about Kennedy, they love him. When I say if Trump isn't on the ballot, who would you vote for? Many of them say that it's Kennedy. A poll done by John Zogby Strategies and commissioned by the American Values 2024 PAC found the following. The poll shows that in a general election between Trump, Biden, and a generic independent candidate, the result is Trump 40, Biden 38, and the independent candidate 17. In a matchup between Trump, Biden, and RFK Jr. as the independent candidate, the result is Trump and Biden tied at 38 with Kennedy at 19. The survey did not include Cornel West running as the Green Party candidate. So the Kennedy campaign advisor who spoke with Mediaite agreed with the fact that many of these in conservative media who are saying that an independent candidate is damaging to Trump. This is going to F Trump. Bobby's values are much more in line with patriots. He's against big pharma. He's pro-Bitcoin, decentralized so the government can control it. And that's where you have it. So the discussion really is whether or not a prominent run by someone who just became an independent from being a Democrat with one of the most iconic Democratic names in American history, Robert Kennedy Jr., what kind of impact he would have on the race.
So there's a couple of layers to this. First layer was when Kennedy first came out and started running against Biden, he got up to near 20 points in the Democratic primary, which is a bit stunning. And then he got a lot of press for that, which he should. That's a big, big number. But I called people inside the Marianne Williamson campaign, and not Marianne herself, but others. And I asked, what do you think? Is it the name recognition just because it's Kennedy? Or did the Democratic base all of a sudden turn into anti-vaxxers? And they're like, no, purely name recognition. They have no idea what he stands for. That was a while back, okay? And so that proved out to be correct. Because as he went and did a lot of media, Democrats found out who he is, and they're like, oh, no, we don't want that. No, we were thinking of another Kennedy, not that one, okay? And so his numbers plummeted, and he got mad at the Democratic Party. They're not holding debates. Should they hold debates? Absolutely right, okay? Are they gonna cheat in favor of Biden? You really didn't know that they were going to? Like, of course they're gonna support the incumbent president. I'm not in favor of that. I'm, and oftentimes I get as angry as he does, but like he's like, as if he's heartbroken, has to run independent, right? No, all this was enormously predictable. Now, when you get to that issue at hand today, who is he gonna hurt more? I don't think it's close. I gave you that context because whatever momentum he had on the Democratic side was ephemeral. It was based on his name and a misunderstanding of who he was. So when you get into what is Kennedy known for today, by far and away, number one is anti-vax, and then you get into the Bitcoins and the Ukraine war funding position, etc. Now, he's actually really good on the environment. He does come from the left initially, right? But nobody knows that, nobody's paying attention to that, and nobody's talking about that. They're talking about those conspiracy theory, right-wing talking points. Is that gonna take more from Trump than Biden? Of course it is. Which Democrats going around going, man, I wish I just had, I like the jobs numbers and I like that he's pro-choice, Biden is. I just wish he was more anti-vax. I just don't think that's a big number, and it has proven to be not a big number. So that's, and then I will say one last thing. I think that the misconception is also because people in DC, they don't know what progressives are at all. So they're like, I don't know, Bernie, RFK Jr., they're probably the same thing, right? Is Bernie anti-vax? I don't, they're all crazy radicals, right? So no, the Bernie supporters are not gonna support RFK Jr. He's nothing like us.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like when RFK Jr. first became a thing, his campaign, everything you hear, he's got the last name Kennedy, he's running as a Democrat, and immediately think like, well, this is not going to be good for Biden, you know. And the one thing most people knew, if they knew anything about him, was the anti-vax stuff. And so part of you goes like, well, you know, the OG anti-vaxxers were like, you know, coastal hippy dippy crystals and candles crowd, you know what I mean? So like if he draws those people away, we might be in trouble. But like you said, and then the early polling numbers all seemed, you know, worrisome, like you said, as it went along, and he talked more and more. And it's like, you know, Democrats started to notice like, oh, this guy's saying some kind of crazy sounding stuff, in addition to the already crazy stuff we knew about him. And then people on the right or right adjacent were like, hey, did you guys hear? This guy's saying some crazy sounding stuff. This is great. You know what I mean? Because like you said, Cenk, like they definitely have a higher number of the conspiracy types and those types of people, and that's who I think he would pull from. So it might seem kind of counterintuitive at first that it would work this way, but I feel like really when you think about it, for all the reasons you've already outlined, you know, I mean, it totally makes sense. So, you know, more power to him, I guess. I hope that's how it plays out.
And there's also a faction of, you know, Republicans who will never vote for a Democrat. So Kennedy changing to an independent makes it a more palatable thing for a Republican who doesn't want to vote for Trump to vote for that third party candidate because they're not a Democrat. And that's, I think that's an important thing to point out here. There's more to discuss on this, but we've got to move on. But basically, there are people though who within the constructs of third parties right now, people like at Third Way, which is a centrist organization, at what is it, the No Labels that wants to prop up Joe Manchin, that they're saying that third-party candidates can't win, basically. Some of them are saying it, that No Labels is not, but Third Way is saying it, that you can't go in here thinking that because that may hand it to somebody else because a third-party candidate can't win that.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us. Become a Young Turk.